Should you sell before September? I have a perspective that is quite different to all the videos I've seen on this topic that I think can stop you from losing a lot of money. The second part of this video is going to be me discussing whether there is any hope left for altcoins in 2025. Please remember that nothing I ever say is financial advice. So the reason why people are calling for selling before September is because they're planning to buy back when the altcoins have dipped. This is so that they're well positioned for the expected Q4 rally. Why selling before September? Because September is traditionally a bearish month for crypto. Taking a look at previous months, it has more often than not meant bleeding for both Bitcoin and, of course, the entire market as a whole. For post-halving years, September has been a red month every single year. And the reason why people are especially on the alert this time around is because we have now seen how much it takes for altcoins to recover. In previous cycles, when Bitcoin and altcoins dipped, especially in this post-halving year, altcoins didn't really bleed nor lag as much. So to front run this, I see people calling for selling before we enter this phase in hopes of getting better prices. First, I'm going to explain how I agree with the selling part, but how I strongly disagree with selling to buy back in. Why I agree with selling is because I think the number one mistake people did this cycle when it came to investing in altcoins is that they came in during FOMO time, got completely blinded by greed, which led them to go mass shopping for altcoins that would in return give them 10, 20, 30x's. I think many people right now are sitting on a bunch of altcoins that they have over allocated to and that they just cannot wait to exit, and especially lower caps. And I agree, you should try and exit many of these poor performers. December was a pretty big wake-up call for people who are overexposed to primarily lower caps, where you would see big caps perform more or less better than the lower caps. And yes, there were good examples of lower caps doing extremely well during this time, but on average, bigger caps just perform better, especially taking into account that they've bled less. What's even scarier to think about is that the bigger caps that many people had high hopes for, on average, didn't really perform that well either. And I'm not saying that these won't have their time and that we will see both lower caps and big caps do amazing, but right now, based on performance, I agree with selling earlier than you perhaps expected when you bought them. But let me be specific. I'm talking about taking profits earlier. This isn't anything new. I've always been an advocate for taking early profits. We were one of the only Discords that were transparent and took a lot of profit during December. So make sure you're in a Discord like mine that knows how to sell, because that's the hardest part. So the idea is still to take profits early on the over-allocated underperformers. And I know this is hard because I know for a fact that the coin you're holding right now has big things coming. It is probably related to fundamental development, mainnet launch, marketing, or maybe even a listing. No matter what altcoin you hold, there's always going to be big things coming. What you need to figure out is why that big thing that is 100% coming has not been priced in yet. So I'm all for selling. The problem is when people are going to sell in order to buy back. Here's the part where I strongly disagree, and I know people are going to react when I say this, but bear with me. I believe the selling you're going to do in the upcoming weeks shouldn't be so you can buy back the September dip. I believe the selling you should do now when we turn green again should be part of the bigger exit. Yes, the final exit of this entire cycle. And you might think it sounds ridiculous starting to think about exiting the market this early, but that depends on how you do it. Exiting the market can be a very dynamic and long-lasting process if you know what you're doing. As you know, I'm planning to rotate my way out of this cycle as my exit. So as I'm rotating, buying new projects, I will slowly decrease my exposure in the market. And this will take months. Remember, your goal as an altcoin investor should be to end this cycle with 100% dry powder. But this whole idea of setting a time frame for when you should sell, in this example before a potential September dip, regardless of performance, is going to lead to a lot of people losing a lot of money. Imagine this. Let's say that you exit most of your positions before September, and for some reason we start to pump in September. The same way we started pumping in May, And this potential September pump is leading into an October, November, and December in the post-halving year, which all combined tend to be very bullish. But you cannot participate in this because you sold most of your altcoins thinking that you would get better entries. Are you really going to take that risk? This is why I think selling and using time frame as the main variable for deciding when to sell is extremely risky. This is about choosing the path of least amount of pain. Would it be more painful to sell and wait for better entries, but then for us to see everything pump up? Or would it be more painful watching your altcoins bleed more the same way they have done almost the entire cycle? Only you can answer that, but for most people, the pain of FOMO is the most severe. The proper way, in my opinion, to combat all of this is just to take profits early, exiting a large amount, say 75% of the altcoin early, but doing it gradually. This prepares you for both scenarios. If we continue to pump, then you sell the remainder 25%, and then you can even afford to set bullish take profits targets, knowing that you have already sold the majority and secured a high weighted average selling price no matter what happens. On the other hand, if September turns out to be shit and we go further down, then at least you've taken your 75%. And the remaining 25% you're free to do whatever you want with. Emotions and especially FOMO are going to be the biggest enemy here. And from my 8 years of experience, this is how you combat this. I'll make a dedicated exit video that goes more into this. I watched every single crypto exit video, and I wouldn't be making one if I felt like I could make a better one and more realistic. So make sure to subscribe to not miss that video. So to sum up, here's what I'm going to do. I will not plan my exit based on a time frame, aka September. Timeframes are what has wrecked the most amount of market participants this cycle. I will hold onto my coins and continue to take a big amount of profits early like I've been doing the entire cycle. Make sure to not skip this second part of the video because I'm going to present something you really need to hear. Second part of this video is going to be me discussing whether or not there's any hope left for altcoins. I want to explain what we can realistically expect for the remaining months of this year. First of all, I have to make it clear, this is nothing like 2021, where Bitcoin can crash 55% for then altcoins that have already pumped tens of X's also crash in the middle of the post-halving year for them to eventually recover later the same year and put in new all-time highs. Just take a second and imagine what even half of this dip from Bitcoin would do to altcoins today. This is and has been a trading cycle for altcoins. You cannot sit and wait for your altcoins to do 30x's. This cycle, going with the same strategy you would apply here, where you could wait for something to do 10 to 20x's before moving your capital elsewhere, is just not going to work. You need to get rid of that mindset before you'll sit there at the end of the cycle realizing you lost a lot of money and wasted an entire cycle. I haven't heard any of the influencers talk about this. This channel is not that big, so you can get a pretty good competitive advantage by taking in perspectives that differs from the masses. But the more the market participants spend time in this market, the higher their competence gets. If we go back to around the same time in the cycle back in 2021 and ask the average market participant to explain tokenomics, vesting schedule, QE, QT, I can guarantee you that the average market participant did not know anything about these things. Today, it seems like the market participants who are here know everything. We know all the correlations, all the time frames, all the rotations, the narratives, all the macro, because as time has gone by in this space, the competence has also increased. This is also true because most of the people who are here now came in a long time ago. And with competence increasing, so does the demand for value. Check out YouTubers back in the last cycle and see what they got away with. Today, the same talking points wouldn't fly at all. Today, on a logical level, everyone knows pretty much everything. So you got to ask yourself today, how can the market throw us off if we already know everything? How are we going to get a FOMO lockout rally if everyone is on the same page? Except everyone isn't on the same page. As I have explained in previous videos, the negative narrative for this cycle, the narrative that has persisted through almost the entire cycle perhaps, with the exception of 2022 and 2023, is that altcoins will not perform. For the entirety of pretty much 2024 and 2025, this has been especially clear, which is all visible through the Bitcoin dominance. What if this narrative is the narrative that leads to the final lockout rally for altcoins? I don't really see any other option than this. I think the fact that more and more people are losing hope, selling their altcoins, eventually will lead to a trend reversal. In fact, I think this is the only way. So what do I see altcoins being able to do during these next couple of months? Even though we're having trouble sustaining any kind of momentum for altcoins right now, I do believe we can get a solid final pump within 2025. It's not going to be anything close to resembling previous alt seasons from different cycles. We have to be honest about that, but a run similar to what we got in Q1 of 2024 is still on the table. And if you think about it, that's all you really need. You don't need your individual altcoins to 25x. You need your altcoins to 5x twice. This is how you're going to make money this cycle. Make sure to check out the VIP Discord where you can get resources like my unique profit-taking strategy and calculator. I also do very thorough portfolio reviews to make sure you're not holding any trash. I spend about 45 minutes on every single review, so you know it's not going to be some bullshit advice. I hope to see you there. Take care and stay safe.